Hey everyone, today I'm going to do a breakdown of my SCX24 C10 Blazer build. This started out as a box stock C10, but has since been very heavily modified. So we'll start right out with the chassis. This has the Furitek Grasshopper in it with their flat brass skid. Overall, great quality chassis. It's got a lot of adjustment points for your shock mounts and your link mounts, as well as adjustable body mounts. Now in the rear, I kept the stock body hinge, but in the front I used the magnets that came with the Grasshopper. And then you can see up under the hood, I just took an extra piece of Lexan that I had cut off of another body and glued that underneath the magnets just to cut down on the force of them a little bit so it opens up a little bit easier. But I mean, you can still pick the truck up by the body just fine. So working out from there, this has the Furitek Stinger combo in it with the Micro Komodo, their motor plate, and the Lizard Pro ESC. And then I'm running that right through a stock ESC that's just been decased so that it fits in this part of the chassis here at the back, so it's nice and out of the way. And then up in the front, I've got the EcoPower 827 servo. So far it's been serving me well. I think it's getting to about the end of its life expectancy. This truck does get wheeled pretty hard, and I've noticed the servo is starting to get a little sluggish sometimes, so I think in the future that's going to end up getting swapped out. I'm just not sure with what yet. I'll possibly go with a bigger size servo, although I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. Now, as for drivetrain, this still has 100% stock transmission, stock drive shafts, stock axle housings. It still has the stock drive shafts, stock axle gears in the rear. I did just install a Trio overdrive in the front axle, and you can see that in the last video. This has the Trio heavy 18-gram steering knuckles on it with Samex 9-gram brass diff covers front and rear. So now as for suspension, I've got the Trio high clearance links in this with the new Samex 4-link conversion links and servo tray up front. That works really well. It fits really well. I can't really say how well it works in a stock chassis because this is the only truck I've got it in. Now I haven't actually gone through and found my center of gravity and all that and started really dialing in the anti-squat and the anti-dive. But honestly, I don't think I need to for what I do with this truck. It's not as capable as it potentially could be, but for the kind of terrain that it's typically wheeling on, it does exceptionally well. I've got Hot Racing's long travel shocks on here. These are the single. These aren't the double barrel shocks. But you can see in the rear, I've got them laid forward almost completely horizontal. And then I've got them laid back quite a ways in the front too, which really gives this truck a very good amount of flex. In fact, just a rough measurement here. It's got about 70 millimeters that it can pull one tire up off the ground. So very good amount of flex. Does a very good job, as I said. There's plenty of running video of this thing both on my indoor course as well as a little bit of outdoor stuff that you can go back and check through. Tires and wheels, these are the Trio C-type bead locks, but they are mounted backwards, so the outside face is to the inside. And these new Trio bead locks come with a removable hub for your hex drive. They have two sets in the box. They have a narrower set and a wider set. I have the narrower set on this. They give me a nice track width, helps keep the truck a little more stable, and you don't have to have extended hexes or extended shafts, any of that stuff. Everything is all still stock internally, and I think these wheels just look awesome mounted that way. Now they're wrapped in the Pitbull rockers. These are vented with no foams, and again, for what I do, they seem to work extremely well that way. When these tires are clean, they're a very sticky compound. and they really seem to shine outdoors, especially on the exposed granite that we've got a lot of up here in Maine on our mountains and stuff. So overall, a very capable truck. Definitely my favorite one out of all the ones I have. Obviously, the body's been modified a little bit. These are just a wide body kit that I designed and 3D printed. And the Blazer top is the RC 4-wheel drive CC hand Blazer top. That hasn't been painted. That's just as it comes. Now, eventually I would like to repaint this whole truck. I'll keep the Blazer top just the bare white, but I want to paint it so that the fenders match the body. For right now, I had no way to match the green that came on this C10, so I decided to just go ahead and spray the fenders a gloss white, and then just threw a couple coats of gloss clear on there. You know, it's kind of an unfinished fiberglass body kit look, but I'd really like to make everything all color matched. I'm just not 100% sure yet what color I want to go with, so I'm open to suggestions. Leave it down in the comments what color you think this truck would look good, or if you think a two-tone would look good. Really the only other modifications I would like to do to this body, obviously it's been trimmed quite a bit to allow for tire clearance inside those fender wells. You can see just how much those rears and fronts were trimmed up. And I also trimmed a little bit off the back of the body down here, just so that it's even with the bottom of my wide body kit. But I did leave the stock rear bumper on there. I did a front bumper delete, but in the future I plan to take this grill off and 3D print a 68, 69-ish, somewhere in that era, GMC grill for this, so I can have a Jimmy versus a Blazer. But that's down the road. Not something that's going to be done right off. I've got some other projects I'm working on. Hopefully some stuff that I'll be able to show here on the channel relatively soon. But as far as total cost, now including the original purchase price of the ready-to-run C10, all told, I have $655.95 into this truck, not counting the resin cost for the fenders, because it's resin that I already buy anyways for other stuff, and I do enough 3D printing for friends of mine to more than cover my cost of resin. So basically these fenders were free. So not exactly a cheap build, but I mean, considering it's under $700 on an aftermarket chassis with a brushless conversion, I'm not going to complain about it at all. I have less into this than I do into my Jeep. Granted, my Jeep has a lot more metal parts, where this still retains a lot more of the stock plastic parts, but this thing blows my Jeep out of the water on performance. Now, I'm not necessarily performance oriented with these builds. I'm much more of a decently scaled trail truck kind of guy, you know, so I like the full bodies and whatnot, and my Jeep was more about getting it heavy, getting the run time up. That's why that has a dual battery setup in it. You know, just something I can take outside and have fun on some actual scale appropriate trails for a good amount of time. As far as going out and actually doing some more aggressive crawling, this thing is my go-to, and it performs awesome. So I'll go ahead and get out my corner scales. I'll show you what this thing weighs and what the biases are, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now I've got my Sky RC corner weight scale set up here. We'll go ahead, we'll throw the truck on it with no battery for right now, and we'll see what we come out to here. Let everything kind of equalize. Alright, so hopefully you can see there, we're at 427.7 grams with a 52% front bias and a 51% right bias with no battery in it. Now, there's a couple different batteries that I run in this truck. Primarily, I use this EcoPower 450 milliamp hour. It's a nice small battery, and it gives this thing a really great run time. I'm not sure, I haven't done a full throttle total runtime test with this truck and this battery, but generally speaking, you know, for a normal amount of throttle variation with a lot of wide open running around obstacle to obstacle, the day that I took it to Bald Mountain, and you can see that video, I'll put the link to that up in the corner here somewhere. I got about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes of runtime out of it that day, and the battery still wasn't dead. So, you know, excellent runtime. Now, when I put the batteries in this, because I know that it's right weight heavy, primarily because of that offset motor, I tend to put my batteries in shifted more to the left side. And that also keeps the wires over here nice and tight to the frame rail where my actual battery plug is zip tied. So we'll go ahead and throw it on the scales with the little battery. Let it equalize, and you can see now we're up to 456.4 grams with 54% front weight, and we're still right around a 51% right side weight. Now the other battery that I'll run in this occasionally, I have a pair of these Helios 600 milliamp hour batteries. I run a pair of these in my Jeep, and it gives that thing an insane amount of runtime. I mean, you've essentially got a 1200 milliamp hour battery in an SCX24. It's just split up between the two rocker panels for better weight distribution, and it keeps them down low. And I'll do a build breakdown video on that at some point in the future, so you can see exactly how that's all set up. But I'll go ahead and throw this in. And we'll see how the weight comes out now. Alright, so now we're at about 463 grams, still 54% front weight, but now our left and right bias is far closer to 50%. We're only, you know, about 1.5 grams heavier on the right side. So, not bad at all. I find it's a very good weight for these SCX24s. It's not super heavy, it's not super light. It's got enough weight that it gets great traction on most every instance. But it's also not so heavy that it starts to hinder itself in certain circumstances. Alright, so now real quick, we're just going to do kind of a theoretical side hill test here. Now, I've still got the 600 milliamp hour battery in here, so it's fairly close to on the left-right bias. Right side's still a little bit heavier, so we'll go ahead and put the right side to the downhill side. Now, I just got a binder here, got the right side tires down on the table. Obviously, this isn't a perfect test. The truck's not running, it's not moving, it's not on actual terrain, but you know, you can kind of get a good idea of what its theoretical limit is. So, got my iPhone here. Try to do this and get everything in camera view best I can. So we're just gonna raise it up until it starts to pull a tire. Alright, so right about 59 degrees is where it started to let go. So, really, for what I do, I don't tend to do a whole lot of side hilling. But I find that 45 to 50 degrees is about the limit of what I usually do. So we're right in the zone there. Now, as far as vertical climbs, I can tell you the steepest climb on my indoor course is 52 degrees, and this will not do it. It doesn't have enough traction, and as I said, I don't have the anti-squat and anti-dive worked out, so the front end unloads quite a bit at that, when it's moving. So now, I mean, you can set it on 52 degrees and it'll sit there and it'll be just fine. It'll stay nice and flat. But of course, when you're actually driving and trying to climb that incline, everything's completely changed. The whole equation changes, because now you've got the front and rear axle actually moving. Now, I've not actually tried it with the overdrive in yet to see if that has made a bit of a difference, where the front end is now pulling versus the front and rear axles, working simultaneously. But I can tell you it's probably not going to make much of a difference on that particular incline. Now, I could fix a lot of that by putting something for limiter straps in the front end. But, again, for the kind of crawling and terrain that I generally do with this truck, I just don't see it as necessary. It's very rare that I'm ever trying to go up a steady, steep obstacle. For the most part, I'll come up on a vertical wall or a nearly vertical wall that's the height of the truck, and then is pretty much flat on the top to get up over it. And you can see it doing some of that in the Bald Mountain wheeling video. So, definitely not the most performance-oriented build out there. It's not going to win any comps, but for what it is, the way it's set up, and what I generally do with it, I'm very happy. And I definitely build it the same way again. So, if you're looking at aftermarket chassis options, definitely give that Furitek Grasshopper another look. It's the only aftermarket chassis I've ever run, so far anyways, but I can tell you that for a build like this, where you're retaining the stock body, everything just fits so well. You get so many adjustment options for your body posts, as well as your shocks and your links. The possibilities are pretty much endless. And with that flat brass skid, so the way this chassis is designed, the skid plate kicks up to the rear. The whole bottom of the chassis is angled, which helps with your breakover angle a little bit. And that flat brass skid just makes it completely flat across the bottom. Your only high points barely are the bottoms of your links. So, you get rid of that little nub that most skid plates have for the transmission gears. The skid plate doesn't stick down below the chassis rails like a lot of them do. Plus, it's brass, so it gives you some more weight down low. It's still sprung weight, but when you're running no springs, is it really sprung weight? And so hopefully you can see it here. With the ride height set where it's at in this, my rear links come off of the frame at almost the same angle as the bottom of the rail there. So this truck has a very good breakover angle considering the small tire diameter. And now, I have tested it before. I can just barely squeeze my LGRP Swamp Kings on this truck if I take the flares off. And with those tires on this, on another set of Trio bead locks, it's a whole nother animal. You've got a taller tire, better ground clearance, so a better breakover angle, and it's insane. But I like the full-bodied stuff, and for a 2-inch tall tire, I believe these measure out to a 1.95, I think, if I remember right. Very impressed with what this little thing can do. But I've got something in the works very soon that I'll be doing a whole build series on that is going to make this thing look like a pavement princess. So, like, subscribe, and make sure you stay tuned. Thanks for watching.